In the misty mountains of ancient Japan, nestled between towering cedars and babbling brooks, there lived a young samurai named Haruki. Though skilled with the sword and versed in the ways of Bushido, Haruki carried a burden heavier than any armor, the weight of his own thoughts. From the moment the sun's first rays pierced the morning fog, Haruki's mind would race. He'd replay conversations from days past, imagining how he could have spoken more wisely or acted more honorably. As he practiced his sword forms, his thoughts would wander to future battles, conjuring countless scenarios of victory and defeat. Even in the quiet of meditation, Haruki found no peace, his mind a tempest of what-ifs and if-onlys. This constant stream of thoughts left Haruki exhausted. Dark circles formed under his eyes and his once precise sword strokes became erratic. His fellow samurai noticed the change, whispering concerns about his fitness for battle. But none dared to approach Haruki, for in their warrior culture, to admit such weakness was to invite shame. One crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves danced on the breeze, Haruki's lord summoned him. With a heavy heart, the young samurai made his way to the castle, certain he was to be stripped of his rank. As he knelt before his master, head bowed in anticipation of rebuke, he was surprised to hear not anger, but concern in the lord's voice. "Haruki," the lord spoke gently, "your valor in battle is without question, but I see a war raging within you. A warrior's greatest enemy is often his own mind. I cannot order this foe to surrender, nor can I defeat it for you. But there is one who might guide you to victory over yourself." The Lord told Haruki of a Zen master who lived in a humble temple at the foot of Mount Fuji. This master, it was said, had helped many find peace amidst chaos, clarity, and confusion. With his Lord's blessing, Haruki set out on a journey to seek the master's wisdom. For days, Haruki traveled. As he walked, his mind continued its relentless march, imagining every possible outcome of his meeting with the Zen master. By the time he reached the temple gates, Haruki was so lost in thought he nearly walked into them. An old monk greeted him, his face a map of laugh lines and wisdom. "Ah," the monk said with a knowing smile, "another seeker arrives. Come, let us walk." Without waiting for a response, the monk turned and began to walk along a winding path that led into a dense bamboo forest. Haruki hurried to keep pace, his mind already racing with questions he wanted to ask. As they walked in silence, Haruki's thoughts grew louder. He imagined himself eloquently explaining his troubles, the monk nodding sagely before imparting some profound wisdom that would instantly cure Haruki's overthinking. Then he imagined stumbling over his words, the monk dismissing him as unworthy of teaching. Back and forth his mind went, building and destroying scenarios, each more elaborate than the last. So lost was Haruki in his thoughts that he didn't notice when the monk stopped walking. He bumped into the old man, nearly knocking him over. "I'm so sorry, master," Haruki exclaimed, mortified by his clumsiness. The monk merely chuckled. "Tell me, young samurai, where are we?" Haruki blinked, suddenly realizing he had no idea. He had been so preoccupied with his thoughts, he hadn't paid any attention to their surroundings. Sheepishly, he admitted, "I don't know, master." "Ah," the monk nodded. "And what color are the flowers blooming beside the path?" Again, Haruki had to confess his ignorance. He hadn't noticed any flowers. "I see," said the monk. "And did you hear the song of the nightingale as we passed the old oak?" Haruki's face burned with shame. He shook his head, having heard nothing but the clamor of his own thoughts. The monk's eyes twinkled with kindness. "Young samurai, you have traveled a great distance, yet you have not moved at all. Your feet may be here in this forest, but your mind is everywhere else. How can you hope to find peace when you are not even present in your own life?" Haruki's eyes widened as the truth of the monk's words sank in. "But master," he asked, "how can I quiet my mind? My thoughts are like a raging river. I fear I will drown in them." The monk nodded thoughtfully. "Come," he said, "let me show you something." They continued down the path until they came to a small clearing. In the center stood an ancient stone well. The monk approached it and peered down into its depths. "Look," he instructed Haruki. Haruki stepped forward and gazed into the well. The water was so still it perfectly reflected the sky above, like a mirror made of liquid glass. "It's beautiful," Haruki breathed. "Indeed," the monk agreed. "Now watch what happens when I do this." He picked up a small pebble and dropped it into the well. The pebble broke the surface with a soft plop, sending ripples across the once still water. The perfect reflection of the sky shattered into 1,000 fractured pieces. "Your mind is like this well," the monk explained. "When it is still, it reflects reality perfectly. But each thought is like a pebble, creating ripples that distort your perception. The more pebbles you drop, the more you think, the more distorted your view becomes." Haruki nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "But Master, how can I stop the pebbles, my thoughts, from falling?" The monk smiled. "You cannot stop the pebbles entirely, Haruki. Thoughts will always come. The trick is not to drop them into the well. Observe your thoughts as they appear. Acknowledge them, but do not engage with them. Let them pass by like clouds in the sky, without clinging to them or pushing them away." "But how?" Haruki asked, eager to learn. "Practice," the monk replied simply. "Each time you notice your mind has wandered, gently bring your attention back to the present moment. Focus on your breath, the feeling of your feet on the ground, the sounds around you. This is the heart of mindfulness." The monk then led Haruki to a small meditation garden. "Sit," he instructed, "and count your breaths. When a thought arises, notice it, let it go, and return to your counting. Do not judge yourself for thinking. Simply return to your breath again and again." Haruki sat and began to practice. At first, he could barely count to 3 before his mind wandered, but each time he gently brought his attention back to his breath. Slowly, the periods of calm between thoughts grew longer. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the garden, the monk returned. "How do you feel?" he asked. Haruki opened his eyes, a look of wonder on his face. "I feel lighter," he said, "as if a great weight has been lifted from my shoulders." The monk nodded approvingly. "You have taken the first step on a long journey, Haruki. Mindfulness is a skill that must be cultivated daily, like tending a garden or honing your swordsmanship. It is not about eliminating thoughts, but about changing your relationship to them. Remember," the monk continued, "your thoughts are not facts. They are not commands you must obey. They are merely events in your mind, like the weather, sometimes stormy, sometimes clear, but always changing. Your true power lies in your ability to observe these mental events without being swept away by them." Haruki bowed deeply to the monk. "Thank you, Master. I will practice diligently." "Good," the monk smiled. "But do not strive too hard, for that too is a form of overthinking. Be gentle with yourself. When you notice you're lost in thought, simply return to the present moment without judgment. This is the way to peace." As Haruki prepared to leave the temple the next morning, the monk gave him one final piece of advice. "Haruki, remember this. The mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Use it as a tool when needed, but do not let it use you. Live in this moment, for it is the only one that truly exists." With a heart full of gratitude and a mind more spacious than he had ever known, Haruki began his journey home. As he walked, he practiced what the monk had taught him. When his mind began to race ahead to what his Lord might say upon his return, Haruki gently brought his attention back to the feeling of his feet on the path, the sound of birds in the trees, the warmth of the sun on his face. For the first time in years, Haruki felt truly alive, awake to the beauty of each moment. He realized that in his constant thinking about the past and future, he had been missing the richness of the present. Now, with each mindful step, he was rediscovering the joy of simply being. As he crested a hill, Haruki paused to watch the sunrise. The sky was ablaze with colors, pink, gold, and lavender, more vibrant than any he had ever seen. Or perhaps, he mused, he was simply seeing clearly for the first time. In that moment, Haruki made a vow. He would continue to cultivate mindfulness, not just for his own peace of mind, but so that he could better serve his Lord and protect his people. For he understood now that a samurai with a clear, present mind was far more effective than one lost in a fog of thoughts. And so, dear viewer, Haruki's story reminds us of an eternal truth. Our greatest battles are often fought not on distant fields, but in the landscape of our own minds. By practicing mindfulness, by learning to observe our thoughts without being consumed by them, we can find peace amidst chaos, clarity and confusion. Like Haruki, we too can learn to live more fully in the present moment, to appreciate the beauty that surrounds us, and to respond to life's challenges with a calm and centered mind. Remember, overthinking is not your true nature. It is a habit, and like any habit, it can be changed with patience and practice. Thank you for joining us for this Zen story. If you found value in Haruki's journey, please consider subscribing to our channel for more ancient wisdom applied to modern life. Remember, each moment is a new opportunity to wake up to the miracle of existence. Until next time, may your mind be still and your heart be full.